There is a version of you that only exists when no one is watching. And that version, the one you think is hidden, is the one that shapes everything. You felt it before, that quiet moment when you could do the right thing and no one would know either way. When the easier path was right there. When you told yourself, it's just this once, it's just a little, what's the harm? Most people never ask what that small compromise cost them. Not immediately, not in obvious ways, but something shifts, something quiet and deep, like a river changing course underground. This is not a story about punishment. It's not about guilt. It's about something far more unsettling. It's about the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. In a small town by the river, there lived a boy named Elias. Elias was not cruel. He was not malicious. He was simply practical. That's what he told himself. Each morning, his task was simple: collect fresh milk from his father's dairy and deliver it to the households in town. The cans were heavy, the sun rose early, and Elias, like so many of us, was always looking for a way to make the burden lighter. So he did something small, something that seemed harmless. He mixed water into the milk, just a little, just enough to lighten the load, just enough to finish faster. No one noticed. The people of the town drank their milk. His father never checked, and Elias walked home each morning with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had found a shortcut through life. I'm earning the same. I'm working less. I'm smart. But here's what he didn't understand yet. The shortcut wasn't saving him time. It was building a version of himself he hadn't yet met. Then came the dry summer. The river shrank. The wells went low. The earth cracked under a sun that had forgotten mercy. And in the middle of this, the town chief made an announcement. A grand festival was coming. The finest milk supplier would be chosen to serve the entire town. The reward? Gold, prestige, a name that people would remember. Elias felt something ignite in his chest. This is my moment. He worked harder than he ever had. He rose earlier, moved faster, and smiled wider at his customers. He told himself he had changed. He told himself he was ready. But every morning, when no one was watching, he still added the water. Old habits don't disappear when we want them to. They disappear when we decide who we are without them. Elias hadn't made that decision yet. The festival came, the square filled with voices, color, and anticipation. Judges sat at a long table, sampling each glass with careful attention. When Elias's turn came, he stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had convinced themselves they were ready for the moment. The first judge tasted the milk. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, like a shadow crossing a wall. The second judge leaned in and whispered something. Then the announcement came, slow and clear. This milk is unsafe. The water that was added, it was not clean. The drought had turned the well water muddy. The very shortcut Elias had taken 100 times in the dark had just been revealed in the light. In the crowd, his father stood still. He said nothing, but the silence in his eyes was heavier than anything words could carry. That night, Elias did not sleep, not because he had been caught, not because of the gold he had lost, but because he realized for the first time that he had been deceiving himself far longer than he had been deceiving anyone else. Here is the truth that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. The shortcuts you take in private, they don't disappear. They accumulate. They become the architecture of who you are. Every time you water down your effort, you are watering down yourself. Every time you tell yourself no one will notice, you are training yourself
to become someone who needs to hide. And here is what no one tells you about integrity. It is not a reputation. It is not something you perform for an audience. It is the private agreement you make with yourself every single morning about what kind of person you are willing to be. The crowd at the festival didn't break Elias. The weight of 100 quiet compromises did. But this is not the end of the story, because the next morning, Elias made a choice. Not a dramatic one, not a public one. He simply picked up the cans, full, heavy, pure, and walked out into the heat. No one was watching, no one was applauding. The gold was gone, the crowd had moved on, but something had returned to him. Something you cannot earn from others, something you can only give to yourself. He walked straighter, not because the load was lighter, it was heavier now, but because he was finally carrying something worth carrying. You are at this crossroads more often than you realize, in the small moments, in the private ones, when you could cut a corner and no one would know, when you could do just enough to get by, when you could tell yourself it doesn't matter, but it matters. Not because the world is watching, because you are watching. And slowly, invisibly, you are becoming the sum of every choice you make when no one else is there. You are no longer someone who measures integrity by whether they were caught. You are becoming someone who understands that who you are in the dark is exactly who you are. The world does not return your actions to you like a court ruling or a punishment. It returns them to you as your character, as the person you wake up next to every morning, as the weight or the lightness that lives behind your eyes. So the next time you are tempted by the shortcut, pause, not out of fear, but out of respect for yourself, because the life you are building is made of exactly what you put into it, pure or diluted, honest or performed. The choice, as it has always been, is yours, and it is made in the silence when no one is watching. That is where your real story is written. And until next video, stay with us and subscribe to Pocket Philosophy. Thank you.